Take a deep breath. Open your heart. Cleanse your mind and receive today's scripture. You are never alone. God's presence is always here.
All right. Today we're going to be looking at something pretty intense.
Yeah, this one's a heavy hitter.
We're talking Hebrews chapter 10, verse 30.
That's right.
God's justice, judgment, and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what we're trying to do today is understand what this verse tells us about justice. You know, what does it say about human justice? What does it say about God's justice?
Right, and how those two things relate. How we as people, as humans, relate to God in terms of his justice.
Totally, and how this verse should inform how we make decisions in our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think this is going to be really relevant for a lot of listeners because, like, who hasn't wrestled with questions about justice in their life, right?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
something that we encounter every day, whether it's something that's happening in the world around us or something that's affecting us personally. It's a constant part of the human experience.
Yeah, and this verse, even though it's really short, it gets right to the heart of some big, big ideas.
I mean, it's only one sentence, but it packs a punch.
So let's jump right into it. Let's unpack this thing. The first part of the verse says, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay." I mean, right off the bat, that's pretty powerful, right? What hits you first when you read those words?
Well, the immediate takeaway is that this is about authority, right? It's a declaration.
God saying, hey, justice, that's my department.
Exactly. It's a claim of ultimate ownership over justice. And it's a reminder that human justice, well, it's limited.
We can't always get it right.
We can. We don't see the full picture. We have our biases. We make mistakes.
And sometimes things just happen in life that feel so unfair, so unjust. And we want to, take things into our own hands.
Oh, absolutely. That's a natural human impulse. We want to see wrongs righted, especially when they're done to us or to those we love.
Just like that feeling of someone's got to pay.
Right. And this verse is saying, hold on a second, step back. God's the one who ultimately ensures that justice is served. And the source material we looked at makes a point that I think is so important here. It says that God sees every wrong, even those that are completely hidden from human view.
That's a huge comfort. It's like knowing that, even when it feels like no one cares or like the guilty get away with it, ultimately nothing is truly hidden from God.
Exactly. So when we're tempted to seek revenge or take justice into our own hands, this verse reminds us to trust in God's timing and in his perfect judgment.
Right, because he sees everything. It's not that he's not acting, it's that he's operating on a different time scale. And this is where I think the challenge for us as humans comes in, right?
Absolutely. We're used to instant gratification. We want things to be fair and we want it now.
Yeah, but with God, it's about trusting that ultimate justice will prevail. We have to let go of that need for immediate satisfaction and have faith in the bigger picture.
And that's a huge shift in perspective, especially in a culture that often encourages us to be assertive and demand our rights. This verse challenges us to think about justice in a completely different way.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we've got this idea that vengeance belongs to God. But the verse doesn't stop there. It goes on to say, the Lord will judge his people. So it's not just about some abstract concept of cosmic justice. It's personal, right? He's talking about judging those who belong to him. What does that mean for us as believers?
This part, I think, is particularly challenging because it brings the idea of judgment really close to home. It's not just about God judging the wicked out there. He's talking about holding his own people accountable.
And that can be kind of unsettling, right?
Right. It's easier to think about God judging those who are clearly bad from our perspective. But when it comes to us, to those who are trying to follow him, it forces us to look inward.
It raises the bar.
Absolutely. And the source material we looked at highlighted that God is both loving and a righteous judge. Those two things are in conflict.
Yeah, it's not like he's one or the other. It's both at the same time. How do we reconcile those two ideas?
Well, think about it like this. A good parent loves their children deeply, but they also discipline them when necessary, right?
Yeah, to teach them.
Right, to help them grow.
Yeah.
It's not about being mean or punishing for the sake of punishment. It's about guiding them towards what's right.
It's about wanting what's best for them in the long run.
Exactly. And I think that's a good analogy for how we can understand God's judgment of his people. It comes from a place of love. It's meant to correct us, to refine us, to help us become more like him.
So it's not about being afraid of punishment. It's about understanding that we're in a relationship with a God who loves us enough to hold us accountable. He's not going to let us just wander off and make bad choices without any consequences.
Right. It's about recognizing that we are answerable to him for our actions.
The source actually used a really interesting phrase. It said that we should live in reverence of this judgment, not in fear, but in reverence.
Yeah. And I think that captures it perfectly. It's not about cowering in terror. It's about recognizing the weight of God's holiness and the seriousness of our choices. It's about living with intentionality, knowing that our lives will be examined, not just by other people, but by God himself.
So, okay, we've talked about God's claim over justice and his role as judge, especially of those who are his followers. But there's another really important aspect of this verse that we haven't touched on yet, and it's all about grace.
Yeah, we can't forget about that.
Because remember, this verse is coming from the book of Hebrews, and specifically from chapter 10. The source material made a point to remind us that this chapter is full of warnings about what happens when people reject God's grace, especially after they've come to know the truth.
Exactly. It's set against the backdrop of Jesus' sacrifice, the ultimate act of love and forgiveness. And the warning is about the danger of turning away from that, of basically saying, no thanks to what God has done for us.
And that's where Hebrews 10:30 comes in, right?
It's like the exclamation point at the end of that warning. Because after all this talk about God's incredible grace, about his willingness to forgive and to reconcile us to himself, verse 30 is this stark reminder that there are consequences for rejecting that offer.
It's saying, don't take this lightly. This is serious stuff.
Right. God is loving, but he's also just. He can't simply overlook sin, and to willfully choose sin after understanding the magnitude of what Jesus has done is to invite judgment.
So this verse is a warning, no doubt about it. But the source also said that it's an encouragement for believers.
Yeah.
How can it be both at the same time?
I think the encouragement comes from understanding the nature of God's judgment. The fact that it is holy and impartial is actually a good thing.
How so?
Well, think about it. If God's judgment was arbitrary, if it was based on favoritism or whims, that would be terrifying.
We'd never know where we stood.
Right. But the fact that his judgment is rooted in his unchanging character, in his perfect justice, that means we can trust it. It means it's fair. And it means we can be confident that if we are truly repentant, if we are seeking to live in a way that honors him, we have nothing to fear.
So the encouragement comes from knowing that God takes sin seriously, but also that he offers complete forgiveness to those who turn to him. It motivates us to stay on the right path.
Right. It's a reminder to not become complacent, to not take God's grace for granted. It's a call to persevere in our faith, to resist temptation, and to continually seek his forgiveness when we fall short.
It's a reminder that following Jesus isn't just a one-time decision. It's a way of life. And it's a way of life that is lived in light of God's justice and his grace. It's about understanding that our choices have real consequences, both now and in the future. And it's about being motivated not by fear, but by love and gratitude, to live in a way that reflects what God has done for us.
Exactly. And I think Hebrews 10.30 really brings all of that into sharp focus.
Totally. So let's kind of bring this all together. If you had to boil it down, what are the main takeaways you'd want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
I'd say there are three big things. First, justice belongs to God. It's not ours to dispense. He sees everything, and he will ensure that things are ultimately set right. Second, God judges his people. It's not something to be afraid of, but something to be aware of and to live in light of. His judgment is rooted in his love and is meant to help us grow. And third, God's grace is a gift, but it's not a free pass. We have to respond to it. We have to choose to turn away from sin and to live in obedience to him.
And that's a challenge for all of us, every single day.
It is, but it's a challenge that's worth embracing.
So as you go about your day-to-day, think about those three things. Think about what it means to live in light of God's justice and his grace. Ask yourself, am I taking his grace for granted? Am I responding to it in a way that honors him? Am I living a life that reflects the love and forgiveness I've received?
Those are some seriously thought-provoking questions.
Yeah, a lot to chew on. And that's what we do here on The Deep Dive.
That's right, we dive deep.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you then.